Hiya, I'm Jasper, and welcome to your video review for Star Wars Episode 1, Pod Racer. I mean, I know it's called The Phantom Menace, but it should basically be called Pod Racer. Anywho, so this is going to be a spoiler review. I'm probably also going to talk a little bit about 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, whatever, 5, 6. So I'm going to talk about some of the other episodes. I might spoil some of those pieces too. I'm going to try not to exactly, but the thing is that I can't really do a spoiler-free review about this that would bring anything new to the table because there are so many different reviews and commentaries and opinions and channels and things dedicated to the Star Wars universe that probably nothing that I'm going to tell you today, if you've watched enough of those, is probably not going to be anything that you haven't heard before, or at least that hasn't been said by somebody somewhere before. But you know what? This is my channel. I'm going to do what I want. So I'm going to give you a spoiler review of Episode 1. So, Episode 1. Remember the good old days? You remember the good old days when this was the worst thing that had happened to Star Wars? Huh? Do you remember those days? When Episode 1 came out and people were like, oh, this is it? And then Episode 2 came out and people were like, and then Episode 3 came out and they were like, oh my god, this is so terrible. And then 7, 8, 9 came out and people were like, oh, you know what? 1, 2, and 3, not so bad. It's like I don't know if it was like Family Guy or something, where there's like some bird, like, I don't know if it was like Quagmire's or whoever's face, but it was like attack, not the face, and so then it started attacking his nether regions, and he's like, no, and then it like goes back to the ball, he's like, oh, you know, this, in comparison, it's not so bad. Like, that's what Episode 1, 2, and 3 is. Because, especially with 1, so prior to 7, 8, and 9 coming out, I Google the machete order, because the machete order, I think, works excellently. Where you watch 4, and it's either 4 and 5, or just, I can't remember if it's 4 and 5 or just 4. But you watch 4 and or 5, and then you skip Episode 1, because it is easily summarized in one paragraph in the opening thing of Episode 2. So then you watch 2, 3, and then 6. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like 4, 5, 2, 3, 6. Because you get to see Vader and his evilness and like, holy shit, like that. Then you see how Vader came about, and then you see his redemption. So I guess I did spoil all 6 episodes if you haven't seen them. Sorry. Welcome to spoiler reviews from me. So, getting back to Episode 1. I love the Pod Racer game that came out for this. It is one of the greatest games of all time, and I hope that they release it for every platform with updated graphics and controls and whatnot, because the game was amazing. And they integrated so many elements from the game from the movie into the game. Like the different speeds and powers and the sounds, like the sound design. So I'm kind of skipping around, but the sound design for this movie is absolutely fantastic. Every single thing sounds amazing. The Gungan Boombas, every individual racer, the droids, the different blasters, the different sabers, the like open closing doors, like the sound design in this, I don't know if it did win an Oscar, but it should have won an Oscar because, you know, back when this movie came out, Oscars were actually worth something and made sense. But absolutely fantastic sound design. I loved it, and it added so much to this movie. I wasted a lot of hours playing the Pod Racer game, so I don't mind that the like 40 or so minute segment of Pod Racer was just like, okay, like this is like half the movie is just setting up and then doing this pod race, and you know what? I'm not mad about it because I love the hell out of that game. So seeing it in a movie, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's cool. Oh yeah, I raced that. Oh yeah, no, I remember that. And I was a human who could do that. Or I'm sorry, you know, whatever this is. So another thing. So I just recently rewatched this along with, you know, the other Star Wars movies that I've been reviewing. But I have seen this movie several times. I have seen it several times. And not once until this time around did I notice, or at least not remember, like, so I remember the scene. I vividly remember the scene where they're like, oh, you know, shut the blast doors, keep them, like, so Qui-Gon is doing his little circle saber thing on the door, and he's like about to get in there, so they're like, oh shit, close the blast doors, and so he just stabs it fully in and is like melting the shit out, and they're like, he's still coming through. So that is an amazing part. I definitely noticed it that the first time around because I'm like, how the fuck is his hand not melting with that heat? The answer, of course, is the Force. But, so I remember that scene, and that was awesome. And I remember, because like I said, I've seen this movie several times, that like, okay, then the droidicas, or destroyer droids, whatever, roll up, and they turn on their shields, and up, choo-choo, 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 choo-choo. And so they're like, okay, it's a standoff, let's go. I remember all that. What I don't remember is, like, as soon as they say it's a standoff, let's go, they do the wide shot where, like, the droids are being shown from behind, and then, like, our heroes are, it's from behind, and our heroes are here, like, our heroes are here from behind, and our heroes just, like, they just, like, they were yoinked off screen. And then, like, they do a shot where, like, it's clear that the droids just go boop, and, like, boop around, and they are already down the hallway. So it's so cool to think that, like, how that is supposed to play out is that they're just like, hey, it's a standoff, let's go. And they just fucking force push themselves and, like, just boom, and probably land on the far wall and then keep going. Like, that, watch that, because I never noticed it. I'm just like, that's a badass, just throw away and you miss it several times moment to show, like, the power of the Jedi. So that's awesome. Moving on to Tatooine, we'll come back to Jar Jar, but when she says there was no father, it really annoys me that everyone is like, oh, that means he's like Jesus, that it was a spontaneous, like, that she just became No, bitches, it means the father didn't stick around. It means she got knocked up by some guy, either by her own choice or not. I mean, she is a slave, so, but she got knocked up, and the father left. So there was no father. I raised him on my own. Yeah, like, he's not Jesus. I know that you're trying to, like, without saying it, but establish he's kind of Jesus. Like, no. Just because he's strong in the Force, the midichlorians did not coalesce into sperm to impregnate her. Fuck off with your shit. I hate that interpretation. Stupid. Also, and I'm skipping to the end here, I will come back, but why did they bring the boy on the raid in the first place? So, towards the end of the movie, and they're like, okay, so the Gungans are going to do their field battle, so that'll distract them, get the droids out of the thing, so that we can come and try and get the capital, so that we can take out the trade viceroys, like, headquarters people, and hold them hostage. Why are you bringing him up to that point? Leave him in the Gungan city, leave him in the staging area before the Gungans actually go out onto the field, or, like, leave him anywhere else in the city where, there's so many other places other than, like, hey, let's bring him on this super dangerous raid all the way up until we're in the hangar area. It's stupid. It's stupid. Speaking of stupid, Darth Jar Jar. Nah, I'm kidding. I actually fucking love Darth Jar Jar. So, I really liked Jar Jar Binks when I first saw this movie. I know that all the old fuckers that were, like, teenagers when episode 4, 5, and 6 came out hated Jar Jar Binks. I did not. I really loved Jar Jar Binks the first time I saw this movie. I was like, he's my favorite character. He's so funny. So, I liked that. Some other characters that I liked was also Keira Knightley. I like I'll get into her in a second. But so Jar Jar Binks. I liked him, and I understand that there was a big fan backlash about that. And from my understanding, George Lucas bitched out on having Darth Jar Jar because of how strong the fan backlash is. And it's one of those things where, he should have stuck to his guns. He didn't do a whole lot of things right many times in his career, in my personal opinion. But having Yoda be like the annoying, oh, no, give me back my candy bar type guy, and then, okay, actually I'm a Super Jedi Master, was awesome. And it was clear that he was setting that up for this one. I'm going to leave a link in the description down below for a couple of videos that I think summarize it a little bit better and actually show some of the clips. There was a better one, I can't seem to find it, but Darth Jar Jar makes so much more sense because you have to CGI this character. Like, he is entirely CGI. Like, yeah, there was a guy in a mocap thing, but you have to CGI him to photorealism for every single instance of what he is doing. So you can't tell me that you're like, hey, we're going to spend all this money to animate his lip movements and then that those lip movements aren't going to matter. No, you would have just had him be static. So there's a couple instances where he is moving his mouth exactly as the other person is saying the thing. And then there's a number of instances where, like, anytime you're like, like, why the fuck did Qui-Gon take him? Why did, why did the Gungan leader make him a general and whatnot? Like, every time that's happening, those type of things are happening, Jar Jar's moving his hands. And it's a well-established thing in Star Wars canon that when a Force user is mind-fucking somebody, they do a hand movement of some kind. Exactly how big it is and what it is, it varies, but they're doing hand movements to establish that. And every time something was like, what the fuck, really? That's what the, what? He's doing hand movements. So there's a number of other instances and things, but Darth Jar Jar makes so much more sense. And it sucks that they just bitched out on that George Lucas bitched out on that idea prior to episode 2 coming out, so they had to introduce, like, Dooku and some other bullshit that doesn't make as much sense. I would have loved to see a Darth Jar Jar reveal in 2 or 3. That would have been awesome. But, alas, 'tis not to be. I like that Keira Knightley was in this in a role that you wouldn't even notice, because Natalie Portman is Padme. What you don't notice is that Keira Knightley plays the Queen for much of the movie, because Padme is, using her as the decoy. But, like, the fact that Keira Knightley is this badass motherfucking actress who's been in a whole bunch of things, like, has an amazing career on her own, and, like, I don't even know, I think she was just, like, credited as, like, decoy or something, like, was not made a big deal about as an actress from this, but Natalie Portman was, and she, like, continued the franchise, and, Keira Knightley just kind of whoosh, but, like, that's so much fun to me, because I like Keira Knightley, I like Natalie Portman, and it's fun that they just look so much alike at that point that they were swapping, and you're like, I probably didn't notice which one was which. So yeah. Also, got to give credit to John Williams' score. He does amazing Star Wars music for all of the Star Wars, basically. But that, the love thing between Padme and Anakin in the next episode was absolutely fantastic. But in this one, like, excellent sound is like music that they had in this one. So props to him, as always. Somebody who does not deserve props is the kid who played Anakin. So I get that you are dealing with child actors, and that child actors, they are still children. I get that. I don't care, because I've seen so many movies with good child actors that there's no excuse for in your Star Wars fucking movie to have a terrible child actor. And he is terrible. He is terrible. There is no natural cadence to him whatsoever. It is just, it's like watching Barney or Power Rangers or Sesame Street, like shitty acting. And I hate every time he's on screen because he is terrible at it. One of the greatest examples, and yeah, some of it does come down to editing, but one of the greatest examples is he's in the Naboo Fighter, and he's supposed to say, like, no, I want to come with you guys. And then Qui-Gon's like, no, you have to stay in there. And he's like, but I. And then Qui-Gon says, like, no, stay there. That's what I said. Exact verbiage. You can watch the section yourself. But point is that other people with acting ability might have continued or phrased things such that it was like, no, but I want to come with you guys. Response given, no, but I want to get cut off. But he doesn't. He just says, but I. And then Qui-Gon comes in and cuts him and then says, no, stay in the thing. Like, yeah, some of that could have been helped with some better editing, but terrible actor. And I'm so glad they replaced him. Also, it's a little funny. Like, I get that, like, puberty or whatever hits boys and girls differently, but it's just so funny that, like, Padme is, like, this tall compared to, like, his Anakin being, like, this tall. And then the next movie, it's like this, and there's an actual love story between them now, as opposed to being like, well, that's a little creepy. Now it's like, all right, that's acceptable. You know what I mean? Like, all right, then. So they CGI'd too much in this, but I did like that they still had some practical miniatures, like when their first starship blew up in the hangar, got blown up in the hangar bay, that was clearly miniature. So there were a couple of miniatures in this. Yes, they relied too heavily on the CGI, but it was okay. The Tatooine intro especially was a little bit bad with the CGI, like trying to have those creatures doesn't quite hold up with dynamic lighting and whatever else that you have today to today's day and age standard. But especially the like Gungan versus droid thing, like it was acceptable because there's not a whole lot of like real things going on. But you could also tell when they were filming against like real grass. versus all the CGI landscape. But you know, it was okay. I think that it was acceptable, especially for the amount of CGI they had in the time in which this movie was made. Still a bit too much, but yeah, that's fine. Also, I really, really, really liked that excellent saber fight between Darth Maul. Especially when it became just Obi-Wan, and after Obi-Wan split that guy's saber in two. That's when it really, really pumped up. Like, I like that in Star Wars, there's always a bottomless chasm with some random walkways with no hand railings over top. So, not OSHA approved. But it's always fun they're able to find that, and that they're using it, and the battle music that went on. So again, John Williams, fantastic. That has such intensity there. And then I liked, the different methods in which they fought, like Qui-Gon, as soon as the red thingies that had no purpose other than separating our heroes so that one of them could die. He just immediately powers down a saber and sits down. He's just gonna meditate, bro, until it's time to go. But I like that it established in Star Wars that when you get your lightsaber shoved through the center of you, that you should die without a doubt, as opposed to being saved, like on Ahsoka or the Obi-Wan or Boba Fett show or whatever, just stupid shit. So, I liked Qui-Gon in this. Liam Neeson's always a win. I like Obi-Wan because, Ewan McGregor's always a win. And there's a lot of, Natalie Portman's excellent. And yeah, so a lot of good actors and actresses in this. And I love that fight sequence. And especially once he gets him down to one and it's just saber on saber with Darth Maul. It's excellent. And I know from just various readings and people tell me, oh, you should watch the TV show, that they bring Darth Maul back, that his species is somehow able to survive getting cut in half and he tumbled down a hole or whatever, so he has a spider bottom half in the TV show. I like that they brought him back in some way in the TV show. Still never gonna watch the TV shows, the animated ones, never gonna. I have watched most of the live action TV shows. Will never watch the animated ones. Period. Don't bother telling me to in the comments. Not going to. But it would be nice if there had been some, or maybe, it's too late now because it's been too long. The guy's probably not as spry as he was, but it would have been cool to see him, see the actual actor give that physicality more to that character. But it's too late really to have a Darth Maul prequel or have a live action sequel with him, really. But that's okay. I enjoyed his character for what it was. He was menacing, phantomly. Sorry. But he did a good job, and I enjoyed that. So, yeah, this movie it's a great time to watch pod racers, but in terms of what you need to know for the story, it's summarized as, you don't need to watch this movie. You can just skip right to episode 2, because I think that in the opening crawl, they summarize what you need to know about episode 1 in that opening crawl for episode 2. So you do not need to watch this. But, cool lightsaber battle, cool pod racing. Yeah, it's up to you. But check out Machete Order. And that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Bye.